Okay. All right. Very good. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to January's installment of Beautiful Black Books, and bringing you Yomi Ṣode in conversation with Chaka Campbell. I'd like to first start the program. We acknowledge that the city of San Jose is made up of the lands of the Ohlone people who trace their ancestry through the local mission system. We remember and acknowledge that this land was taken through violence and dishonesty. We remember the connection the Ohlone people have to this region and give thanks for the opportunity to continue to live, work, learn, and pray on their traditional homeland. Let us take a moment now of silence to pay respect to their elders and to all Ohlone people of the past and present. Thank you. All right. Now, Poetry Center San Jose is almost 45 years old. We have here a member-supported organization, and it is funded in part by grants from Applied Materials Foundation, the City of San Jose's Office of Cultural Affairs, Knight Foundation, Poets and Writers, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, SV Creates in partnership with the County of Santa Clara and the California Arts Council, and generous giving from Ann and Mark's Art Party and the Brandenburg Family Foundation. Upcoming events at Poetry Center San Jose include Poetry Exchange hosted by Lisa Medley and co-sponsored by Los Gatos Public Library, taking place every third Sunday of the month via Zoom. So this month it is on January the 16th from 1 to 3 p.m. That's Pacific time. Email Lisa at lcmedley016 to receive the Zoom link. In order to attend, I'll get that to you in the chat. We also have coming up third Thursdays, also hosted by Lisa Medley and co-sponsored by the Willow Glen Public Library. That will take place on the 20th of this month. Poetry Lounge with, again, host Lisa Medley, co-sponsored by the Willow Glen Public Library, Sunday, February 12th, 1 p.m. And you'll have to email again, Lisa, for the Zoom link. San Jose Poetry Slam takes place every second Sunday of the month. Our next show, February the 13th, just in time for Valentine's Day so that you can show your love to our new Santa Clara County Poet Laureate, Chaka Campbell, who will be featured for Well Read. Chaka, an accomplished artist and performer who has authored 4 books, Tarman, Muted Whispers, Tunnel Vision, and Stuff, and 3 music albums, 1, Bloodlines, and Skin, Volume 1. He's working both sides. He has toured internationally and has been featured at theaters from the legendary Apollo Theatre in New York to Poetry Cafe in London, England. Campbell has collaborated on a number of musical projects in the house, jazz, and blues genres, as well as national commercials. He continues to ask the world to listen different. Would you now please welcome Chaka Campbell to the mic? Woo! Welcome. Good morning, Chaka.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for that that introduction. I'm as I've said before, I'm honored. I'm humbled. I am appreciative of all the people in my life that have touched me to bring me to this point. So,
congratulations.
There's that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. So, beautiful Black books, right? We're starting the new year. I am super excited about that, and even more excited that I am bringing a young man to sort of our family, our beautiful Black Books family, and introducing him to the folks sort of on this side of the pond. Probably folks on this side of the pond already know who he is, but I'm just adding to that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the bio. But before we get to that, I just want to talk a little bit about Beautiful Black Books, brought to you by Poetry Center San Jose. So this is a reoccurring program featuring Black writers in conversation, followed by Q&A. Basically, we curated this as a vessel of exchange, right? We want to bring Black writers to our communities and our communities to these writers to learn about their sources of inspiration, things in their life, in their journey that was formative for them, and just generally sit down and have a chat. We don't always get a chance and an opportunity to sit back and chop it up with our friends and our fellow artists. So that's sort of the core remit of what Beautiful Black Books is. You know, I want to go through Yomi's bio, but you can read that. You can go read it all over the place. You know what I'm saying? I just want to get into talking to this young man. I have seen, I've got it's been years that I've been able to, I want to say, experience Yomi, because it absolutely is an experience. From going back to London, meeting him on the spoken word scene, getting to meet him and his family, seeing his growth, and then from a distance, I stalk you, just FYI. So, seeing you from a distance and all the accomplishments that you've made since then, but he is listed as one of MTV's brand new artists, writers, poets. Yomi has seen and been performing over 10 years. He balances the fine line between both Nigerian and British cultures, which can be at times humorous, loving, self-reflective, and uncomfortable. Highlights include opening for Saul Williams, The Last Poets, appearances at Yahoo Wireless Festival, Latitude, Lovebox, Olympic Village, Sadler's Wells Theatre, as well as working with Channel 4 and BBC Radio 1 Extra. He's had his work commissioned by the Mayor's Office, BBC World Service, BBC Africa, various charities. You see what I'm saying? Like, I can go on and on and on. He has a new book, a new baby called Mannerisms that's due for publication by Penguin Books. First of all, let's just give it up for artists getting published by major publication houses. So I'm proud of that. I'm glad this is happening, and I'm glad that at least we can get you on this funnel to getting to more people, more eyeballs on your great work. That's coming out in spring 22, in which we'll talk a little bit about this later on in the program, this book, and so the evolution of it. But as I said, I can go on, but I am so happy to be here with my little brother. So I want to first start off by saying, where are you hailing from right now? Tell the folks where you're coming to us from today. What's your manner, as they say in England? Talk to us about where you are right now, where you're coming from.
First, thank you so much for the invitation. I hope everyone is well. You're all looking beautiful. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you for this event. Good morning, because it certainly is not morning right now, and it's cold right now in good old London. I am speaking from North London. And if you get more kind of direct to that, it's Holloway Road. Around the Highbury Islington area. I'm not sure if anyone is into football / soccer or British kind of football, but it's close to Arsenal. I'm not folks heard of Arsenal football team, that we're close to there. That is the current location. And yeah, that is very much me. Shaka, it's been a while. It's been
too long. It's been too long.
Gosh,
I
I'm
know.
trying to think back to it. I think it's roughly, I think around 2000 and like 2014, 2015 was the
Yeah.
last in a physical space that we
That's
saw.
physical. Absolutely. Yeah, that's when I got migrated over to over to the US around that time period. But yeah, and I think I came back once. God, it might have been 2015 for a show you were doing. That's the one thing you guys should know as well, is that not only is Yomi part of this conversation, but part of this community, but he's helped to cultivate this community in a number of functions that him individually and his team have put on to showcase British art and artists as well. So I just want to give you your flowers as well. But it's,
Thank
yeah, I came back to a show you were putting on, and I think that was like 14, 15. So it's been a minute.
Wow.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Good to see you. You're looking fresh.
I'm trying, man.
Notice what you do. You didn't tell me that you were still going to be getting with the hip. You got the beanie to the side. I'm just like, what?
No, man. Look. They say grow old grow old with grace. Forget that. I'm just, I'm going till the wheels fall off, my friend.
I will like, you're gonna get all the flowers. For the folks that might not, if you don't know already, Shaka's style is like top notch. So it's like, it's in the poetry and it's in the style, those two things.
Oh,
I was like,
man.
yeah, I like this.
Man.
I like this guy. This is where we're gonna go right now. This is how we'll go. This is the end. All right, okay. I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna let
I got your PayPal account. I'll make sure I'll shoot the money over there for the props. So look, let's jump in, man. As everyone's heard your bio, author, playwright, performer.
Yeah.
Which of these accomplishments are you most proud of, and would you add anything else to the list that's not there?
I think if I were to just, if there's one home, like a hub for everything, I think it would just be literature. I think that the ability to be able to write work that leaves the confines of your home and is performed, is read, it's watched, it's kind of listened to, it's a blessing, like it's for the most part, folks will still, I could still write a lot of these things and keep it in-house because I don't know if I'm ready to share this work. But the gift and the ability and the just the blessing to be able to share this work and to share the writing is incredible. And the many houses that then goes into, whether it's plays, whether it's music, whether it's poetry, radio, it's incredible to me. And I think that's one thing that I'll consistently search for is what are the other ways that literature can be accessed? How can you access literature? Like, I feel like it's malleable. And if it's malleable, then what can we do? How can we bend it? How can we stretch it? How can I like flick it to somewhere so someone can catch it? Do you see what I mean? So I feel very playful when it comes to literature, right? I miss music. I miss making music. You remember the tune we made together with Alim, with like, I miss those days. Like I miss making music, and I think I had to make a concrete decision to step away from music. My last performance was with my band, and it was the Wireless Festival. And the Wireless Festival was a big festival in London, right? And we just had the biggest gig of our career type thing. And straight after we finished, like a week later, I said to the band, I'm going to stop making music. They looked at me like, what? Like, what?
Right. What? We just making it. What are you doing?
We just hit big time with this booking. It can only go up from here. And they asked me, they're like, but why do you want to stop? And I said, I feel like I'm losing my craft as a writer. Because there's like, when you're making music, it's almost as if you have to not dumb yourself down, but you have to write to an audience and a chorus and almost make it formulaic in a way that gets the audience and you know how music works when you're writing songs, it's very formulaic. And I felt the more I kept on writing these songs, the less craft I'm putting into the actual writing in terms of my poems.
Yeah.
As soon as I made that decision, I enrolled myself in a poetry course and started from scratch, and I was there for like the next year.
Yeah.
And I started writing the play. So it's almost as if like this sacrifice had to be made in order to get my tools in order to know how I'm going to go forward, right? Which was a scary thing to do at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Man, you touched on so many amazing things there. Is, you know, even from the simplicity of like, what do you call yourself? You know, the other day I was, you know, I had to redoing my business cards, right? And when I looked at my old one, you have, you know, there's poet and there's this and author and that, and I'm just like, but it's all encapsulated in this thing, and you put it perfectly when you said it's literature, right? It's you're an artist, right? And I think that's so profound, because I feel as though years ago, or like at least I feel, and I could be wrong, and like during the Harlem Renaissance, I feel like folks talked about artistry, and folks were artists that had different disciplines,
right?
Versus you're just this or you're just that, you know, and it could compartmentalize you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think at that time I know myself enough to be like, I'm just not this type of writer.
Right.
I refuse to be, and it took me a while to even kind of get comfortable with poet as a term that folks will be addressing me by, because I felt like there was still a service that I needed to do in order to get to that point, purely because of the likes of, like, if we're talking the Renaissance, and we're talking like the Langston Hughes, and we're talking about the Neil Hurstons, or we're talking about David J. or yourself. I'm like, there's a journey to get to this point in time. Like, there's an actual journey, and I don't know if I'm there. And what I don't want is for people to start to now put that over me, like I am there already, where I'm just like, yo, I still have work to do. Like, I still, you know. So I love the idea of the artist, because the artist breathes room to just experiment and play. I think if there's anything I'm going to be talking about back and forth there, is play. The ability to be playful and not be confined to one specific area, you know? Like, we have to be given room to play in order to find ourselves within the writing that we do and how we consume art, right?
No, it makes perfect sense. You know, you sort of springboarded for me into going back when I first met you. I want, you know, and I know this is a little bit of a step backwards, but it kind of fits right into what you're talking about here. You know, when I first met you, one of the names you were going by was Greeds.
Greeds, yeah.
So tell us what that stood for, because I think it's important to see.
So it was
early in your journey, you know.
Yeah, so early doors when I was making music, it's almost like there was, like, you know, like Beyonce's got Sasha Fierce, right? Like, you got these kind of alter egos as to how you want to enter the world. And Greeds was just the musical side. It was generating rhymes to engage the enlightened soul. That was the breakdown of Greeds, Greeds. And what was interesting about the journey was that it was very musical, it was very live band. It was kind of spoken word poetry fused with like rock, hip hop, ska. It's on Apple. Like, if you're streaming, it's on Spotify and Apple. We can send you that link later if you want to have a listen. But when it changed after I stopped making music and I started to kind of go into these courses and writing and crafting and finding out a bit about the sonnet and finding out a bit about this, I was like, okay, cool. Now I'm writing poems. It really feels a bit strange to write them under this name. Like, I'm writing them as this is me now, right? This is it's strange. And it might sound so strange. It was like, on the day I publish a book, when I hand it to my mother, how do I want to hand it? What name do I want her to read as she holds that book? Do I want it to and that was a key thing for me, and it decided for me, you know, in terms of, yeah, it's just going to be my name. It's just going to be my name, and it's going to be something that I'm going to fully embrace in going forward.
That's so profound to me, and personal, because you may not remember, this was years and years ago. We had a conversation similar to this, and it was about it was sort of naming and folks going on stage. And so, you're going on stage and you're performing, and everyone is hearing these words, whatever words they may be, but it's coming from this pseudonym.
Yeah.
Right. So when you start talking about integrity of the work and such, and not to say that the individual artist is not giving it integrity, but you have an audience who's never seen you before, they're hearing this. This is what this person said, not what Chaka said, or this is what, Power Blaster said versus William, Tucker. You know what I mean? And what that does for your work and for the audience sort of absorbing your work.
And it's like stepping into the fire, right? If I entered each poem under the pseudonym, it's almost as if, but Yomi didn't enter that poem.
Yeah.
Please wrote the poem, right? It's like, how accountable am I willing to be to my name? I'm like, I'm going to put this poem out, but this poem is going to be to my name. This piece of work is going to be to my name. So you should know that it's coming from a space that's not an alter ego or anything else like that. It's purely going to be me. And that, that took time to get to that point. And it was an interesting one as well, because I wasn't so sure about the landscape in England in regards to receiving work from a non-white, space and landscape. If I'm coming in heavy with Yoruba, for example, all of my Nigerianness, how would that be accepted? Would that be classed as poetry? All this stuff, but we can go into that in a bit, should you want to explore that a bit more. But all of that stuff was riling through my head in terms of, oh, you're gonna put your name out there. You know what this means? This is now boom. Like your name isn't like, no offense to any Jameses or anything, but it's not like, it's not like a common English kind of British name. Like, it's not. Your name is standing out. Some people might not be able to pronounce your name. Are you willing to now go into that and lean into it? And I was just like, let's go.
Let's go. Let's take this on. No, let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about, that sort of dichotomy and in sort of presenting and putting yourself out there, because it's all of that builds into who you are, right? So there's no guidelines, there's no guardrails here, right? So we can chat about it. Like, what were the things that you were worried about, that especially in, because there's sort of, as you remember, the non-white community, there's the white community, there's all these different spaces that you have to be in, and all the things that come along with it. How do you sort of manage and maneuver through those spaces?
It was definitely something that I had to take my time to understand. Like, I had to, I can only speak from my experience, and I don't want to necessarily be here as like a representative of like the UK, because even though I am by proxy of like all of me, do you see what I mean? But I know I still have some friends in the States, for example, that are quite surprised at the amount of racism that happens in the UK. And I'm like, oh, you'll be hella surprised as to how much microaggressions, systemic, institutional racism, all this stuff that normally happens and what have you. And I guess when it pertains to things like the literary realm, it's something that I've had to understand. And I think there are still weird optics when it pertains to spoken word and poetry, page, stage, the demographic as to who's engaging in poetry and spoken word, the demographic that's engaging in page versus stage stuff and what have you, and how serious performance poets, spoken word artists are taken, and whether it is considered as poetry. You see what I mean? And then when you take a deeper dive into that, you notice that at least at a certain point when you was definitely within the UK and noticing the majority of spoken word artists, stage poets in terms of like performance poets, were Black. And when you kind of run into this a bit more, it's like, okay, so what is happening now? Are we now saying that, poets, Black poets performing their work that's not necessarily read off the page and what have you, are we saying that they are not poets? Are we saying that these works are not considered works that is personal to them, or that can speak to a wider society of people? What are we actually trying to say right now? And that's when it gets very, 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 very technical. and in some way, shape, or form, I have to make sense of that. I have to find myself. Where am I in this place? You know, when I step into institutions, for example, that is widely known to host a range of white page writers, poets, and I come in here just performing, not necessarily with a paper or books in hand or what have you. I come in here feeling like I'm out of place, and that's a really interesting feeling. Hence why the book is titled what it is titled, because I wanted to really go into code switching and what that means. So to answer your question, to put it simply, I've literally had to navigate this space in terms of how best to work it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and, you know, look, there's another dynamic to that as well that I just want to make, you know, I want to bring out as well, is that there's all that you talked about just now, and all the obstacles and the precipices you have to jump over. You know, then there's that piece of, especially if this is your main source of living, right? It's one thing if you're doing this other piece and, you know, and this is what you love and you're doing it on the side, but it's like, okay, I've got to get paid for this thing. I've got a family to support. You've got all this stuff going in your head. It's sort of like, how do you know, and it may be just similar to what you just spoke on, but, you know, I feel like there's another level in how do I now evaluate this from an economic perspective, and from the perspective of I'm trying to be true to me, and like you said, manage all of these different levels. I mean, to put it quite simply, if someone comes to you with this, you know, in this environment that you know that you may not feel, as you said, it's uncomfortable walking in, but you know, there's a purse at the end of that, and then I've got rent coming up. How do you manage that dichotomy?
I've had to suck it up and just go for it.
Yeah.
I've had to unwillingly almost shed my own identity to fit the aesthetic in terms of what's going on.
Yeah.
And in that journey, find my voice to be like, oh, fuck this. This is not who I am. This is nothing that I represent, or the community that I represent. This isn't the way I want to talk. This isn't these are not the poems that I want to write to fit a community that I don't know whether it accepts me anyway. So I'm left with just the only options of being me the best way possible, right? And just entering that space. I suppose for you know, I'm not sure if everyone within this in the Zoom right now, if they are writers, it's not easy to necessarily build financial equity, so we say, in regards to like you get paid from your writing. Like it's difficult, like it's not easy. But I've never necessarily ran with that theory, so to speak. I hear it, but it doesn't mean I'm leaning into it. So I will always feel like I'm gonna get a car at the end of each reading, for example. Why not dream? You know, why not necessarily think big, rather than to limit myself? Otherwise, what am I working towards? You're right, I have a family. I'm not necessarily writing this to come home every single time with no options as to how to provide for my family. I'm thankful that I've had amazing opportunities along the way to provide in that sense, to still enable me to have opportunities to write. But definitely in those early stages, I was working full time, finishing work at stupid hours, going to open mic nights. In fact, that course that I was talking about earlier, that was an evening course. So I would start work at like 9 a.m. I would finish work around 5:30, 6, and I would get to the course for about 7 o'clock, right till 9:30, and I'm getting home at 11 p.m. And this was me for a year. These were 11-hour, 12-hour days that I was doing just to meet this as best as I can. So it wasn't easy, you know, it definitely wasn't easy.
Absolutely. And you know, and I appreciate it, and appreciate the work you've done. And you know, going into that, you know, you talked about sort of when you made that transition, you said to yourself, okay, look, I'm going to go back to I'm going to go back to school, right? And learn. Talk to me about that process. So what not so much, what did you learn, but how did you take this world that you were successful in before and now bring sort of this I don't want to say academic, but it is a learning space. Like, how did you pull that in and potentially join the two to then sort of to have that take you forward?
I didn't. I just I I made a decision. I attended a course. No stage saw me for a while.
Mm.
No stage saw me. I wasn't around. I just needed the break. And you get caught up in the fanfare of it. You get caught up in the hype.
Yeah.
Like, you come in with one hot poem, everyone loves your poem, they want to hear it again. You be like, what? Yeah, what? It did the poem. I love that
Yeah.
poem. Do that poem again.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I actually had this one poem that I always used to hit in every single spot. And I was going to a new spot one time and I was on a date, right? And I went to this new spot. You had like 60 seconds to do your thing, and then the crowd reacts. If they react big, then you carry on with it. If they react
Wow.
bad, then that's it.
Wow.
But I'm like I'm like, all right, cool, let's rock and roll. I now break into this poem and I'm going 10 seconds in, 20 seconds in. I'm like, they're like people, I'm hearing murmurs, right? And then the boos like absolutely just started, right?
Yeah.
And then I had to stop this poem. And then I I came off that stage and I went to sit down, and I'll never forget, my date just pats me on my back and I'm just like, oh, yo, that just really happened, right? That just really happened. But I was so thankful for that happening because it's a humbling, right? It's like just when you think your poem is shit hot, you get that reality that it's really, you just, all you done was step out of the poetry space and went into another space that doesn't really engage with poetry,
Right.
but it did not connect with your words. So to me, that just meant you've got work to do.
Yes.
You've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just them things that I have to kind of bear in mind in terms of these are how you learn your lessons. So when I was taking the course, I didn't attend a lot of open mic nights because I was like, oh, this is how you get caught up in a hype.
Yeah.
This is how people will just be like, oh, that poem was really, really good, until you take it to somewhere or an editor and they say, no, this poem is not what you're thinking it is, right? And the only way you can do that is lean into the honesty, lean into those moments that you yourself see, okay, maybe I was a bit too stubborn and hard-headed. There's some facts here. I could have done that enjambment a little different. That's all could have worked over here real quick. And I guess I had to go through those kind of learnings.
Yeah. It's funny. I've always thought, there's a poem I wrote a long time ago, and I still haven't finished it, but it was sort of this whole view of your purest poem. And this is my view, right? It's like your purest poem was the first time you got on stage and did a poem. Because right after that, you're then affected and impacted by that response. So you can't get on stage or sit down to write another piece without that experience in your head.
Of course. And it's a drug.
Right. And then how does that now affect your next piece and your next piece and your next piece? Like you said, as you go out in the world and either hear that you're hot or not, but you're impacted by all of these experiences, for positive or negative. But I was trying to, in that moment, go back to like, what is that purest poem? And it was the first time I read, I got up and said anything in front of someone.
And you're always striving for that kind of response off the back of it. And I think I had to scale it back down and be like, I can't always be trying to reach this level of, especially when you go from like a performance kind of spoken word setting in terms of like an open mic night, where folks might click, where folks might just like make the biggest noise. And then you go to you go to a page setting,
right?
An actual page setting. Because my first experience in a page night was the most incredible experience ever. I just heard the most fire poem. and there was no applause. There was nothing. There was nothing. But the language is different. So the language is we appreciate this poem, but we know you're not done. So we'll clap at the end. Whereas in like kind of spoken word nights or performance poetry nights or what have you, we're clapping on the money. We're clapping as soon as you round up that poem, it's clapping. So and then I'm noticing the language is different in terms of the spaces that I access. And for me, it was this learning that I just had to open myself to and just be like, okay, cool. There's different languages happening depending on the night. There's craft that's involved in terms of performance and how you use it. So and I'm very thankful for this in terms of what my background, in terms of kind of growing within a live music, live poetry setting to a more page form setting, because I've straddled both worlds beautifully to now find myself somewhere in between and how to kind of make sense of that.
Yeah, no, I started laughing because I remember, and I've seen this multiple times, and it happens to me, is like you said, you've got this poem and you got your fire poem. Even, I mean, we I'm going to say broad enough to say we as performance artists, we start doing a poem and we've done it so much that we actually kind of put pauses in where you're going to hear the audience thing, right? Ba-da-da-da-da, you drop that thing, and so you get so used to those pauses in the spaces, and then you go to a different venue and you're reading this poem and then you pause and there's nothing. And it's like,
we're like, huh? What's happening? What am I doing? What?
And then the audience is like, why did you stop? Like that, just waiting for it. And there's nothing. And it's like, oh,
humbling.
So go back to the
humbling. It's the most humbling experience, and it's the most beautiful experience. Because then what that says is you just have one job, just read the poem.
Yes.
Read the poem. 100%. Just read the poem.
Yeah. Because
anything outside of that is birthed of the culture that one is grown into. But at the end of the day, that if you imagine it in terms of a caterpillar to a butterfly type thing, these early stages will be developing it. But then when you get to the full bloom, you need to be ready for the world.
Yeah.
And that world is not going to be in the same respect to what one might have experienced earlier on, you know. And it's interesting how I'm just seeing the landscape of that at the moment. It's a real journey. It's a real journey.
It talks a lot to letting the writing do the work, you know, versus all the additive that you put on top of it. You know what I mean?
Because before you move on, that's why I think I stopped music, because the beat, the drum, the guitar, all of these things were moving people, but I don't know I had no clue what my words were doing. I had no idea what my words were doing. I know the beat can catch you, the kick and the snare is doing everything it needs to do.
Right.
I don't know what my words are doing. So let me stop this noise, this sound, these sounds, and let this work, these poems be the music. Because if that hits and I go back to music, it's a marriage. We're good. We're absolutely good. But I think I definitely stopped music because I was not sure that people were hearing what I was saying. And I think that for me, you know, and I coin yourself when you say listen different, because it's always stayed with me, because I'm like, no, I don't know if folks are hearing me. They're hearing me, but are they hearing me, right? And I think that was what was key about this for me.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. It's always about doing the work, right? There's no sort of rest period in that sense. It's all if the view is to, you know, you want to evolve as an artist, it's always kind of taking that step back and re-looking at yourself. I do want to jump into, you know, the plays and things that you're doing, because you've done some phenomenal work, and I want to read something here that was written about the play And Breathe.
Oh gosh, right? You need to in background like this. You see what I mean?
I'm saying this. We going back, right? We are
Dao guru and researcher. All right, cool. Bet.
You know, I'm Trevor Noah in a beanie. You know what I mean? So it says here, And Breathe was said to be and I quote, "This is a strange and startling production from start to finish. Yomi's hour-long monologue features a man addressing his absent cousin about a family secret and builds immense power as it fans out to a story of family grief presented specifically as Black trauma, but with a universality to it." It says the play, now here's the thing, the play received 4 awards, right? The Black British Theatre Awards, the UK's first award show to celebrate the excellence of influence of Black performers and creatives in the theatre industry. It won Best Director, Best Production of a Play, Best Musical Director, and Best Male Actor. How does that feel? Like, what did that do? That's amazing. Like, that's the stuff you see on the press release, right? For like this, how did that make you feel in terms of, you know, your accomplishments, your journey? Because it's an accomplishment.
It felt incredible. It felt incredible. And then I'm not gonna lie to you, I felt super bad as well, because everybody's like, yo, where can we read? Where can we read and breathe? And I'm like, well, it's the 3rd section of my debut book that's not out yet.
Yeah.
So folks were just like,
and drop the mic.
I was like, I'll see you later. I've gotta go now. Bye. So it's like this really weird like, it's really hard to explain. I have grown in this scene to be like, there are certain rules, and you know, it's sort of like with music, right? It's an EP before the album type thing to kind of give people a flavor, in the same way that's like almost like a pamphlet before the collection, blah, 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 blah. So I've kind of been understanding these rules over time, but this play is just, and Breathe is a series of poems. I keep telling people this, they don't believe me. I'm like, it's the 3rd section in my debut book. And when you receive it in your hands, look at the 3rd section of this book, and they are all individual 19 to 20 odd poems, right? These poems have now been adapted to an hour-long play. What are the rules now? What can you tell me in regards to rules, and who creates these rules for this production to happen from a book that's not even out yet? Who determines what these rules are, and who creates these rules? And I think the more these things happen, the more, like I said, like, literature is malleable. You can't necessarily put a deadline on how these things happen. You can just ensure that it can happen if you ask the right questions, and if you make it, if it's something you truly want it to happen, sure, go for it. And I'm like, people would have waited over a year potentially for this book to come out, and it's already done what it's done. I'm happy, I'm content already, because I see the power of just that. So for me, if anything that it's showing me is I feel humbled, I feel very thankful. It's a true story. And for me, it just tells me to keep testing these boundaries and seeing what else can literature do? What else can we do with these words in terms of how can it reach an audience of people? Because these are poems that reached theater goers. And that for me is it's just an amazing thing to happen. Do you see what I mean? So I play, it's just me trying to find out how much I can play with these things and see what can happen. You know, specific measures. I don't want to get all wild and make like the silliest decision. But if I know that it's something that's feasible, why not look into it, and why not kind of test that curiosity?
Like with it, like we are living, breathing, adapting entities, right? And so why should we be, and this is again governed by these rules, right? As you said, right? You're putting out this work, and to not use to not overuse your word there, but you're breathing in this work, you're breathing in this environment. And so it's going to output in the way you need it to output. Right? You know what I mean? And so it's beautiful. I mean, I love to hear when artists say, like for me, when someone says, I asked, well, why did you do this? And they're like, I don't know, it just felt good. That's perfect. Right? That's perfect. It felt good. You were going, what the universe was telling you to do, So I think there's something to that that's really beautiful and really honest about your work and how you treat your work. You don't sort of, keep it in this is the category with the label maker. I put the label on it and this is where you sit on the shelf. I think it, like you said before, it just needs time to breathe and move. Now we're soon gonna get to you showing some work for us, right? But God, I could talk to you forever. So I got a couple more questions before we unleash you onto the world. First, I have to say, big ups to your lovely family, to your lovely wife. Behind every great man, so please give hugs. Please, Lux said to make sure you give hugs to the family for me.
Until Lux, I'm so knee deep in Succession right now. I don't even know what is happening to my entire being.
That's a whole
idea. I feel like Succession is really interfering in our relationship right now. I feel like I don't even know what to do with anything in my actual being. So I need to finish all the seasons and just leave it be. But Lux was gearing me to watch this even more. So thank Lux for that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I will. For those on the we're talking about the show Succession. That's I don't even remember what station it's on, but it is an incredible experience. Once you get into it, it is it's like crack. You cannot stop taking doses of it. So so perfect. I just wanted to recognize that you and sort of and your team behind you. And with that, I'm going to jump to 5 years ago, 2017, Coat, right? It's another piece of work and just, a little tidbit. I remember when you were first kind of working on the beginning parts of this, you did a, I think it was a 5 or 10 minute reading.
Yeah.
In, oh God, I forget.
I don't know if he was even, I'm not sure because it was in several places.
This was when you were first, before, I think it was when it was becoming Coat. There was this thing at, God, what's the theater that's right across? It's a series of theaters that's right on the water by London Bridge.
I think it's South Bank.
Yeah, South Bank. And there was a spot where they gave folks, I think, 10 or 15 minutes to talk. And I think that was when I first heard the beginnings of it. But 2017, 5 years on, seasoned Yomi, looking back, what would you change about that performance and that experience?
I don't know if I'll change anything in the performance. I don't think I'll change anything in the performance because that performance was grueling. It's me playing 8 characters. I'm cooking a meal on stage. I'm chopping onions quicker than I've ever remembered chopping onions in my life. This is a different kind of. I don't even know how to explain that kind of situation. So when it comes to that performance, I worked like proper. Myself and Thierry, the director, we worked. The experience of it. I guess I would have wanted to know, just to be a bit more knowledgeable about what working with an active team is like. The difference between Coat and Breathe. I had a team. I had a director. I had a producer. I had lighting, assistant director, all of this stuff. And I'm looking around, feeling absolutely useless because I'm just like, yo, I'm so used to doing everything with just me, right? And even when it came to Coat, the latter end, we had a team. But I would have wanted to know that you can have that. That can happen. You can actually have it. It doesn't have to be just you. And again, I think this speaks to a lot of what are the gems and the tools that folks have access to versus the ones that we have to plow through to kind of get to. And what I'm trying to do is create infrastructures where up and coming artists are not in a similar position in 2017 like I was, trying to find out if I can do this with a team or on my own. 100% you are owed a team. You're meant to have a team to work with you. You're not meant to enter this on your own at XYZ and what have you. But at the same time, I'm thankful for that kind of graft. I'm working as though I don't have a team. So that means I'm relying on myself to get shit done. You see what I mean? So there's pros and cons to how you enter this, man. It's really interesting.
Do you have it, is it online anywhere?
It sure is. Like if you was to kind of, if you put, I know that it's definitely on Amazon. It's definitely on Amazon. If you put just coat, like the coat you wear, your jacket, Yomi Ṣode, you see it first thing. It should be there.
Absolutely. I want folks to experience this. I mean, again, this gentleman getting on stage cooking. He's doing this before. He's cooking a meal. Doing this before. Talk about innovation and you know and playing with this art form. It's amazing the things that you do with this work. Let me. I'm gonna have one more question, and we're gonna get you to read. Well, maybe two more questions because this is my show and I can do what I want.
Of course, no rules. You create your rules.
You know what I'm saying? So, back in the day, 2011, right? There was Daddy Diaries.
Right. Oh
right?
my
You
God.
put together Daddy Diaries where it was just, you know, a series of, I mean, you can talk to a little bit about a little better about what it was, but the question I have for you is that, you know, you were doing this before, I believe, you had children, right? So
yeah.
What's one lesson that fatherhood has imparted on your art and your work ethic? So if you can talk to people just a little bit about what Daddy Diaries was, and then, you know, what a lesson have you learned that you've put into your art form since being a father?
Oh, thank you for asking. Jeez, Daddy Diary is still one of my favorite projects, and I always feel guilty because I don't feel like I have enough time for it in terms of what everything is going on. And Daddy Diaries essentially is a website of journals from fathers and guardians. It's online now, so it's daddydiaries.org. And when you go on the website, you just see different experiences from fathers in terms of like, oh my God, my youngest came in saying that she's got a date. And you find out the youngest is like 4 years old or something like that, and you see the dad freaking out, like, I don't know what to do with myself type thing, right? And then you get to another situation where you have like a stepfather that, you know, is having to come into full dad mode when biological dad has kind of let the kids down again. So you now see how the stepfather is trying to navigate this relationship while maintaining a boundary in respect of the dad as well. So it kind of goes into all these different stories, right? And you're right, I very much kicked that off way before I was a dad. The beautiful thing is I became a father in 2014, and I was shit nervous. I was just like, how the hell do you do this? I'm like, what do you need to do? Like, what, is there like a pack I need to read? Like, what's happening? And I was like, oh, I've got a whole website. Like, I have a whole website. So I just literally went back to the website. I just went back to the website. I read all the stories again. And I read all the stories again, and I went to this really cool kind of gathering with dads to be, like a 9 to 5 o'clock type gathering. We spoke to midwife. We practiced what changing the kind of nappies are gonna be like. We done everything. It was beautiful. And then I got home, and I will never forget, Godfather was on, and I poured a brandy and ice, and I sat back and I said to myself, I'm ready. I still no lies. I was like, I'm ready. I've got this.
Taking all the courses. I've
so
read all
ready.
the books.
I remember it. Like I was watching Al Pacino doing his thing, and I was like, I had this kind of brandy in hand. I was just like, I'm ready. And then 3 days later, here he was. So in relation to the poems, I think it definitely provided patience. It provided patience, but in the same time, what it provided was a more tunnel vision, clear approach. So on average, I know, for example, if I have a 3-4 hour window, I know that I need to get whatever I need to do done within that 3-4 hour window, because the rest of it is going to be either picking up from nursery or doing this, doing the run-ins, or doing this, or doing this, and doing this. So I had to be very, very acute with my time. I had to be very detailed and very sensitive with my time and not allow any distractions. And it really helped to hone in the focus in terms of, if you have this amount of time, how are you going to utilize this time? And then there were two of them.
Yes.
Snap.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we need to crank this up
Right.
10 times more. So it's like wherever. So that's how there's a bit of Jay-Z-esque thing about to happen here, but it's not Jay-Z-esque. So if I knew I had a poem in mind that I wanted to write, I would build that poem mentally in my head. If I knew that I was going to write on Thursday or Friday, I will start processing the poem from the Saturday, get the lines together, get the idea together conceptually in terms of what I wanted to do. And I'll work this poem mentally between Saturday and Wednesday, because come Thursday, it's showtime. And that has been practiced for the last 7 years, and I've only perfected it over time. I've been able to mentally compartmentalize what this writing process is going to be and the day of execution. So yesterday I wrote a commission yesterday, but I've been building this poem for the last 4 days. I've been researching it, putting the links in my notes. So come the day, I have 8 hours. So with those 8 hours, I need to do the research, do the reading, write this, have a draft, done, and then wrap it up within the next day or so. So that's how it's helped me over time.
That's fantastic. It is so, it's so, I'm just laughing because it's so true. Well, two things. One, I wish I had that Daddy Diaries when I was having, when Salon was coming into the world, because I asked everyone and everyone was different. So that didn't help. Right? So I was like, I need some uniformity so I could tell that doing this thing makes sense, because at least 4 out of the 7 people I surveyed said right. But none of that came. And then I read books, and the books would say, I would read, 3-4 pages of things you should do. And then the last footnote would say, but every child is different.
Yo.
It's just like, so what the hell I just spent all this time reading this for, right? So I could definitely relate to that, and wish there was a Daddy Diaries at that time, as well as, you find ways to fit the writing in, and to your point, it makes you efficient, right? I wrote one of my whole books on my phone, on British Transit, right? As little time you have, like you said, your notes, little voice thing, and then you and then you put it together, then you come back, so it definitely breeds efficiency. The last question I have before we're gonna loose you onto the world is, there's a continuing thread that at least I feel runs through your work that I kind of hear, although indirectly I hear it sort of in the distance, echoing in the distance. It runs through it like your spine and your mom, right? So how does your mother influence your work?
Wow. It wasn't until I love that you raised that. Thank you. Reading back on mannerism, I noticed on the shoulders of the women in my life, right, that I'm standing on, type thing, right, and how they have in a way navigated my own life going through this book. It's even from the first poem, which I'll share, it's looking into figures. Even though it's kind of geared towards men, black men and boys, it really is saying, okay, behind that, or even when we kind of put that aside, we're still kind of navigating within the strength and the wisdom, and it's in my case of my mother, through these years, and the many forms and shapes that takes, right? And without getting, well, my work is quite transparent in a sense and personal. She called me 3 days ago and what have you. And she's like, and if I'm on, just to be perfectly honest with you, like the relationship with my father is not the best, so to speak. And she was just like, everything is fine in my life at the moment. The only thing that's not fine is the fact that you and your father are not talking as much. I would like for you two to talk. And when an order like that comes, it's so calm. There is power behind it.
Oh my God, yes.
You can have 1,000. You can have 1,000 Ryus do the Hadokens and everything else like that. That's exactly what's coming behind that kind of tone. But that is the power that's coming behind that tone. The fury. There's pure fury coming. There's pure passion coming behind such a very low tone, very honest tone. And I think with I would want that work to be. The writing is always coming from a space of love, because she's always transcended love. Like she's always kind of sent love to the ether, to the universe, to wherever she's working with or engaged with or spoken to. So if I'm kind of looking at this aspect and entering pieces of work, conversations like these with love as like the foundation of it, it's a beautiful thing to see how that grows or where that grows. There could be disagreements, there could be like absolute agreements, but you're working from a foundation that there's some pureness in there, if that makes any sense. And I think that's what she represents for me, is a thing of, she's frank, but she won't lie to you. Like she will tell you as it is. And you might not like that, but it's always going to work for one space. And I'm like, all right, cool. So how can I work from a space where you might not necessarily agree or disagree, but you can always trust in that I'm going to write from and operate from this specific space, and that's how I entered this book. That's how I entered this book in terms of the title. And so it will be, you're dealing with something that's not so surface level. You're dealing with just a side, or just me to a certain degree, of how we're going to be going into these pieces.
That is, and I thank you for being vulnerable enough and for sharing that with us. I think it's super important for folks to understand, and ourselves, so to understand where these things come from to make us up, as I said, as artists. I remember this saying that says, you can get to 100 by going from 1 to 100, but you can also get to 100 from doing 100 ones. You know what I mean? And so it's always amazing to see all of the ones that are adding up to get to the 100 of Yomi. You know what I mean? And so I'll see your posts, because I said I'd stalk you secretly, and there'll be a mention of your mom here, and then a mention here, right? And sort of, you see how all of that, then it's those moments when you're like, okay, I see, and okay, I see, which is beautiful.
Though, right? The last post in relation to my mom was when of her holding the award.
Yes.
So she held the award, right? And the day when I won the award, and I went to hers the next day, and she held the award, like I said in the caption, she said, I'd never thought I'd be alive to hold an award. She migrated from Nigeria. She came, she worked in England for the longest time, and she's worked within a landscape where she never thought she would be able to access. And I guess that's the interesting thing here, is that to access, to get even close to an award or to hold an award. So that means you've just been slaving away in this country without, and you've made peace with the fact that I'm only going to get this much out of this country, because I don't know how willing this country's is ready to let me into the finer sides of this world.
Right. Well.
Right. And it goes back to my whole thing in regards to, like, when I speak to them about the kind of racism and the kind of institutional, kind of systemic stuff that happens in this country, how it keeps a community of people to one level. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. To a point that you would make my mother at 62 make peace with the fact that this is as much as she's going to get in life in here.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me,
Yeah.
right? So when she held that award, it was a defining moment to be like, you finally held an award, you know? You finally held an award. And this is your milestone that you've met. And I'm glad you've met that milestone, you know? Like, I'm very, very glad you met that milestone.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. I mean, recognition, right? It's like you said, I've always noticed, and in my experiences in the UK, when you bring up racism, when you bring up access, I always feel like, it's in the brick and mortar of the place. I feel, at least in my experience, America's a little bit different in that, like, it's slapping you in your face. You see it all the time.
Yeah.
But it's in front of you. It's kind of in front of you, and you can kind of feel when it's coming. And certain parts, at least again, my experience in the UK was that it's like, it's mixed in the concrete as you walk down the street, right? So it's just there, just seeping into your shoes as you walk. You know what I mean? So, but that aside, man, it's such a beautiful thing to see, what the pieces that kind of make you up. And so I'm sure your mom is so proud of you. I'm proud of you. So without further ado, I want to give you some space to share some of your work, to share whatever it is what you want to read. I'm assuming it's pieces, it's mannerisms, to talk about that. But whatever you feel you want to talk about, you do. And we'll give you some space to do that.
Awesome sauce. Everyone here, everyone good? Like, please feel free, put in the chat, say hi. I normally get like a everyone say hi type thing. That I'm gonna do my hi, hey. I know I've been talking so much type thing. So you're about to get even worse. You're gonna get all of my voice right now, boy.
Good. We're gonna hit some of these. When you finish, we're gonna hit some of these questions we're gonna give the audience time to ask you questions, and we'll read some of the things that they've posted in here as well.
Thank you. All right, let's read some poems. So my debut collection, Mannerisms, coming out in spring of this year. I'm nervous, I'm excited, and I'm everything. I don't even know how to best explain it. I think the best way to talk about this book is, I was really curious as to why I adapt to the settings that I am in. It's very interesting. I was really, whether I'm in like work, whether I'm with my aunties and uncles and my mother, why is it that the code switching is always happening? And it got me into a deeper conversation in terms of Black people generally, specifically Black men and boys, and the amount of physical adaptations or the adapting that they had to do within spaces. So this has led me on such a journey. It's led me into journeys of art history. It's led me into journeys of like speaking to those close to me. It's led to journeys of dealing with a loss in the family. And I will share some of that, some of the work with you tonight. Well, I say tonight, and for y'all it's this morning, right? So cool. On rock and roll, please mind me, I'm doing some reading. So cool. So the first piece is titled the door of no return, and this is the poem that kind of kicks off the book. So in Benin, in Nigeria, there is a specific area called Ouida. And in Ouida, I'm not sure folks are aware of the door of no return, but there is a specific space where there's a landmark where enslaved Africans were walked up to, and beyond that landmark were ships or whatever that literally took them across the ocean to Europe and to the Americas. And that for me was really, it was striking. I read a passage in the Bible, and that passage in the Bible was speaking to the angel that came to warn Joseph that baby Jesus, there's people coming to kill baby Jesus. And I wondered if there could have been a similar advance notice to those enslaved, to tell them that this is what's coming for them, essentially. So this is the piece titled Door of No Return. I'm wondering if the angel could have warned the slaves the way it did warn Joseph before King Herod's attempt to kill baby Jesus. The March, Ouida, 17th century, Benin. I'm sure they just walked. Parched, paired and chained, ankles to wrists, wrists to neck, heads and eyes to anywhere but each other. Maybe a prayer helped, but what good was God when his wind sifted through bodies bearing lashes? Maybe a song aided, a melody that couldn't be woken out of sleep, couldn't be dragged, grabbing anything in sight to pull itself out of harm's reach. A melody in which one keeps, the only thing one can keep. Shore to ship, Ouida, Benin, 17th century. I'm sure that some held still for their arrival. And while they waited, I read they were advised to not turn around. No, that was not their children crying, not their mother or father, their husband or wife, just remnants of a home they once known, scattered between their sandy toes. And for once, the ship arrived. They rubbed them together to still the fear that rose as they stepped on deck, Anethia, making themselves stone. That was how they faced a world they'd yet to encounter, by denying those captors the sight of their grief at what they left behind. The ocean, Ouida, Benin, 17th century. I bet they rowed harder. Yemoya, were these not your children being taken? Were they not calling for you as each boil and their skin burst? Could you not hear them, or the slap of their bodies thrown overboard into your womb? What song did you sing while burying their bones? Silently, they long for your calling. With the tightness of iron on their legs, they closed their eyes each night and waited, whispering, "Save us. Save us." The next piece is titled Lapel David. And I'm not sure if anyone knows Lapel David or heard of the term itself. So Lapel David essentially, so imagine if you're at a subway and you're waiting for your train to come and you step real close to the edge and you're kind of leaning and you kind of wonder, what if type thing. Or if you're driving on a highway, for example, and then you're driving, and then you think, what happens if you swerved into oncoming traffic? There is something about, there's actual study about this. If you go into the websites and what have in regards to Lapel David and what that means, it's almost like there's this curiosity that happens type thing that you want to just chance something. Or I'll type it in as soon as when we get time for like questions and stuff like that. So called Lapel David. So really interesting kind of insight in terms of how the mind works and curiosity in terms of the dangers that we kind of consider or think about. Oh, my funniest one is sometimes if a manager's really talking to me in a shitty way, I kind of think, what would it be like to just like trip you up or something, or just kind of like just be like, shut the fuck up, something along those lines, right? So yeah, so kind of like stuff like that, right? But there was a real Lapel David, there was a real strong period where things were just getting a bit too heavy in England with the marches that were happening, Black Lives Matter marches, and all these different atrocities that was happening in regards to Black people, and it just got so much. So this is the poem. I'll try to really keep it minimal in regards to the preambles. I hate preambles, but yeah, let's see how it goes. Lapel David. Knife in hand, I cut the top off and score a deep cross in the okra. Top down, I begin slicing sideways through its body, watching its sticky seeds latch onto me like a newborn's grip to an adult finger. Plaster in sight, I up my pace, feeling the knife on my thumb like a light jab on flesh, teasing a cut. My lady asks what's wrong. I say nothing. I ask why. She says that I've been grinding my teeth again while I sleep, that nudges to my ribs do nothing to stop it. She hears them at night, like a pestle in its mortar. The aisle of a shop in Dalston, the weight of a uniform of a stranger, flattened a man's lungs the same way I'd sit to deflate a mattress. Nameless are the boulders that rocked side to side on Rashan Charles until a stillness seized them. Justice is an autopsy with no apology. Okra on the stove to boil. I begin to peel the mackerel. Thumbing through its glossed skin, only half goes into the pot. Then a sprinkle of Maggie and a satire of my mother's stirring. The flames burst uninvited in the building, climbing through sleep, late dinners and bath time. Droplets on water burned from skin. What witnesses attended them? No sensors recognized their screams. Few smoke alarms outside. Loud hailers sank beneath a wall of sound. How many buried names approved the cladding? The night before last, I woke, questioning what's happening to the men in my life. Just yesterday, the hypocrite in me dared to ask one of the man them why he holds his anger in. Just yesterday, I longed for a pull of lemon haze, then remembered why I decided not to learn how to roll. I called out a friend's attempt at banter last week. An online onslaught of my own projections landed in his inbox. There are traumas that cannot be wiped. It felt good. It felt right until his sorry shone a reflection. Until my lady chuckled at my seriousness. It was meant to be funny, he said. I don't get white humor, I thought to reply. I'm sorry. My son turned his back to me yet again when I tell him off. He too has mastered society's way of silencing me. Angered, I turn him, forward-facing, stern, his eyes are closed. He too has mastered the art of choosing what to see. My brethren stops me to advise, bro, the hammer. Allow treating everything like it's nails. A Roanoke nightmare in Virginia. Outside the church they stood, chanting the plight of their whiteness, holding tiki torches, even there in the expression of their anger, in depth to what's not theirs. Earlier that day, a black policeman was instructed to guard neo-Nazi campaigners from attack. His mouth on a leash, his blood, an implosion of anaphia, a waving of flags behind him. My lady asks, what's wrong? I say everything. I pour Gary into scalding water and stir gently. It bubbles and pops like lava, landing on my novice skin. Love is faint if my wrist does not ache while I form its body with the turning stick. A slab of eba, or miobe, ila, and error on a plate. My hands cupping, blowing and layering. My teeth grinding solids into nothings. The next poem is titled A Plate of Artichokes. So in mannerism, I am drawing parallels to an Italian painter called Caravaggio. I'm not sure if folks are aware of Caravaggio, right? So I'm drawing. If you are, please let me know in the chat. Type it in so I know I'm not alone. So I'm drawing comparisons to a painter called Caravaggio, and for those, so how can I describe Caravaggio? Right. So Caravaggio is often termed the bad boy of Italian painting, right? He is to painting what Allen Iverson is like to basketball, what like Tupac is to hip hop, what Muhammad Ali is to boxing. Do you know what I mean? Like he's kind of like that's the standout. You cannot miss him. But the only difference is between all of those black men that I mentioned, Caravaggio killed someone. Right? Actually killed someone, legit killed someone, then ran, right? And in that, right, the chiaroscuro, oh, right, we got someone, the chiaroscuro, we got someone, I appreciate you. So in killing someone and running, surely you think if you get caught, you're going to jail, but no, he was actually exempt because the person that could actually send him to jail was like, all right, if you paint like an image of me, you're good. And sure enough, he painted, and sure enough, he got off. And I thought it was really interesting how the parallels between those times and now is not much different when we consider privilege, power, when we consider just how people are kind of held in high esteem. Martin Scorsese will swear by Caravaggio's work till today. And it's very interesting how folks like, say, Tupac or Allen Iverson or Muhammad Ali will get the biggest kind of criticisms in regards to themselves for simply being Black men. This is interesting for me, or this was interesting. So I decided, let me write about these parallels. Let me draw some comparisons in this book. So this particular poem is called A Plate of Artichokes, and it speaks to an actual situation that happened with Caravaggio in his life, because I'm following his work and his personal life and his paintings. And this is one of the poems that, just to give you an example of what I'm trying to do in the work. I hope that was all right. I hope I didn't take too long to explain that. It was quite important because I'm going to touch on that from time to time as we go through. So this is titled A Plate of Artichokes. Smell them and you will easily know which are cooked in butter and which in oil. And painter Caravaggio felt he had been treated like a commoner, a baron. The same way I felt when a waiter asked me to pay as soon as I ordered my food. My man did not even ask. The couple sat beside my lady and me. Why? He took their orders first. Yet, there I was, thumbing the first of my digits into the card reader. I read once that Caravaggio threw his plate in the waiter's face. The waiter had held an artichoke under his nose as if to feed a child, and before God and man, I stopped on the third digit. Did you ask them to pay when they ordered their meal as well? I asked, and my lady tugged at my shirt. Each pull was a discreet gesture to not make a scene. The night had just begun, and already I was typecast, clenching my fist. Was this protocol? An honest mistake? Or the moment he saw me, had the waiter written a script, decided how this would go? I read that Caravaggio reached for a friend's sword because the respect that he had been given wasn't enough. He wanted to be addressed in a similar manner to his peers, not made a laughing stock. He wanted to see the kind of blood that stains the plate that serves you. That evening, I too dreamt of violence. I no longer had the benefit of doubt to give. I imagined pulling that waiter's tie in over a lit candle. I imagined holding him there, his throat hovering a flame. I pressed the final digit in. Cool. Cool. Right. Let's move right on. Everybody good? Everyone okay? I'm always mindful of like long readings. Like I'm just like, yeah, everyone's all right. Nice. Wicked. Cool. Okay. A lighter poem. Let's do a lighter poem. So this poem's titled "The Barbershop." I love my barbershops. Even though I've been growing my hair for like 3 years now, I still enjoy the community of a barbershop. I enjoy everything in the barbershop. And this day was no different, because this day when I went in to go take my boy for his haircut, the whole shop noticed the barber had a bacon apron on. And we were like, yo, like, can we trust? It was a new barber as well. And you know, the whole thing with new barbers, you just don't know what the situation is going to be. But it's not only are you a new barber, but you have a bacon apron. And we're like, is this the right job? Like, you're in right now. Can we trust you right now when we sit down? And we thought that was like a real funny moment. So this is titled "The Barbershop." A roar ripples through the shop as Tunde mistakenly chisels higher into Devin's hairline, leaving Nuffman in disarray. All of them busting up on the floor. I watch Tunde, a matador who in one motion spins his cape tight around Devin's neck, then ties a single knot in his sweetest ole. Tunde reassures young Devin that he is in good hands. He cuts Tiny Temper's hair. Wale says the only thing tiny about Tunde is his drugged, drunken brain. Tiny care, Wale barks, lassoing his clippers close to Mandem's scalp. You trust your hair in the hands of this man, Abby. Okay. Devon looks past him Tunde's rambles and Tunde's teeth that resembles a row of blunt pencils, but can't help fixating on the glossy apron decorated with cupcakes. Tunde wears to trim his hair. The mocking begins. A barber wearing a bacon apron to cut hair. Mandem's hysteria leaves the shop. Passerbys stop, looking in to see what's caused the commotion. Tunde, are you trimming hair or are you baking cakes, fam? Devs, hot him up. But Devon won't. He mouths, it's okay, uncle. I too am Devon. Old enough to decide the style I want my hair cut. Still young, always, in forgiving elders, even when I'm wronged. Cool. Let's keep it moving. Right, this next one is the first time I'm actually going to read this, so I'm quite nervous because it's quite a chunky one. And the title is quite a racy title. So this next poem is titled, For Black Boys You Idolize Mr. Marcus More Than Their Fathers. There's the awkward question to ask folks in the audience if you know who Mr. Marcus is, but I'll give you the short answer. Mr. Marcus is a porn star. Mr. Marcus is a porn star, and it was very interesting when I was in this discourse with a lot of my friends when we're talking about sex and trying to understand affection, intimacy with my black male friends, and we realized the lack of fathers in our space, which then meant that we had to make sense of sex. We had to make sense of love, of intimacy through various other devices. And interestingly enough, where we could get together and speak, and our curiosities in terms of what does sex mean, what is sex, or what have you, it was very interesting how that never happened, because in the potential of talking to one of my boys back then, if we at like 12 or 13 or 15, talking to them about either condoms or talking to them about sex, it's a thing of, yo, like, what are you doing right now? Like, it just had this really eerie feeling of a comfortability. So this poem really just made me think about where the space was, if our fathers were not around, so to speak, how we had to then kind of make the most of what we had. So this poem is titled, For Black Boys Who Idolize Mr. Marcus More Than Their Fathers. Black boys that watched Mr. Marcus having sex in his birthday suit, wearing Timbs and a baseball cap. Iconic. Black boys that understood intimacy through VHS tapes, DVDs, LimeWire, and word of mouth. Black boys with questions regarding their bodies, who were too embarrassed to ask what to do when their hearts beat fast and blood rushes to their penises. Black boys never voicing their queries. Black boys with questions about masturbation, making themselves a bad taste in Mandem's mouth, something rancid, something other than a boy that's ready. Boys, not men. Boys, not Mr. Marcus, whose physique speaks before his mouth opens. Mr. Marcus, who when edges tightens his ass until he arrives. A rite of passage met through time. The moment boys' young selves die, that shedding, the low, slow grunt of mourning, an exhale as deep as Mr. Marcus. Black boys fast-tracked into manhood, hands on the steering wheel, foot on the acceleration with instructions to keep on straight, their heads barely reaching over the dashboard, the world looking on as they crash into everything in sight, police, teachers, parents, lovers, black boys who held confessions like unguarded candles to their flammable bodies, black boys who idolized Mr. Marcus, a porn star who raised a generation more than some fathers did, who was there at the button's click, who could be paused at night and still be found in the morning, who was present, gathering dust as we aged, as we watched him under the moon's gaze. We watched him, this shooting star. Black boys that took notes when clinics felt too awkward to go to for advice, when sex education in schools didn't do enough to educate on sex. Black boys who nervously laughed when putting condoms on bananas. Black boys misguided. Black boys making matters into their own hands. Black boys chirping on road or after a rave. Black boys boasting that they beat, they fucked, they banged, yet never spoke about kissing, touching, hugging, foreplay. Black boys that never talked, never knew how to deal with broken hearts. Black boys bawling sadness, rejection, angst into rage. Black boys violent, black boys frightened. Black boys never sharing fears about sex, about loss, about whether they were ready. Oh, black boys, the world assumes that you are ready. Oh, black boys, how fucked is it to think that your idolization of Mr. Marcus, the absence of some fathers, these ways of living was all normal. Thank you. Cool. Let me know how I'm doing time-wise, by the way. I don't want to be here running you right into like for a whole hour. Cool. Cool. One more. All right. So can I be cheeky and do two more? I'll do something from the from the and brief sequence. So these last two poems are gonna be from the sequence in the book, which is the third section. So my grandma's sister, she died of cancer on December 4th, 2019, my birthday actually. She died on my birthday. And it was something that hit the family really hard. Which resulted in this entire sequence that is in the book, this entire third section of the book, and I'm just going to share two poems from there, and I believe it's all you. Amazing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for just thank you, Jack. Thank you. Really appreciating this. So this is titled Reception, and the second one is titled December 3rd. 11:10 a.m. So I'm just going to read both, and Chakra's over to you. Reception 1. Uncle D passed Big Mummy in the reception area on more than one occasion, waiting to be seen. My mum told me they would greet each other like it was an awkward encounter at bus stops. They never asked why the other was there. That cultural thing, you know? Treating illness like a wet dream, tying the sheets in knots to cover the embarrassment. In that airy clinical room, it was as though they were strangers. No one could have guessed to the extent of their closeness. And then, Big Mummy's tiny frame still wrapped against the wind, her bifocal glasses hold and bold, yet formal, they would sit in the ambience provided by a ticking clock. The metronome of the second hand would grow louder until the melancholy loop was broken, and one of their names was called, leaving the other more alone. I should mention that Uncle D had a cancer scare roughly a year or so ago. I don't know when exactly, that cultural thing. A lump the size of a table tennis ball grew just above his shoulder blade and refused to budge. I'd look, wanting to pop it with something sharp to banish it from our lives forever. He saw Big Mummy on mornings when branches shed their bark anew. He saw her when the summer sun shone over everyone, even the most unholy. He saw her on mornings his body trembled beneath his clothes. He saw her until the lump gave in and he went into remission. The same morning her secret left her. That was the day it flew its nest and found home in him as they both wept. December 3rd, 11:10 a.m. Big Mummy lies on the bed. There were tubes in my Big Mummy's arm. The cancer was like a tick sucking everything but breath out of her. I was staring at Big Mummy. She looked pale in that light. Dark brown blots of freckles scattered on her arm. I held her hand. Big Mummy, it's Junior. Are you okay? And immediately I thought, what a stupid question to ask. Her chest being the only thing that moves. Not the legs she walked to church on Sundays with, the arms she tensed when raising patients from the wheelchair to the bed with, not her eyes she studied at night with, not her toes, fingers, fingertips, eyebrows, knuckles, mouth, or throat. She wasn't eating. Straw to mouth, food ending up on her clothes, something I know she would hate. I asked whether everyone had eaten. What kind of appetite could there be? Why was I asking silly questions again? What food could replenish our faltering hope, our small stock of prayers? There's a consultant who will talk to us soon. Until then, silence. The walking in and out of the room, the pacing meaning nerves, meaning we knew the truth was coming, a countdown on a route planner, that truth. I was calling my mum to hold back her tears. Dear mum, do you remember the first night we arrived in England? A snowy day in Peckham, our skins cursing you and the heavens while we waited for Auntie N to come home. We stayed in that bin cupboard to keep warm. You hugged me and I stretched my arms out to you back, but they were not long enough. Mum, they were long enough now. And there we are again, waiting, watching Big Mummy. Like that. Cool. Cool. Thank you. I realized I had one more from the sequence. I was just like, I left you all on a cliffhanger. Shall I read the last one of that sequence? Or is like, how are you not feeling? I got like one more in that sequence. Cool, go for it. All right, let me read the last one of that sequence and then we'll go to questions if that's all right with you.
Yes, read.
All good. All right. This is titled The Text Reads, and this is it, absolutely the last one. The text reads, Yomi, I'm eating more than usual. I noticed it the night I ate an entire pizza by myself, each slice asking me why or uttering, must you? Their voices slowly grew muffled as I curled them upwards from the tip like a Swiss roll, marveling at the calories in my hand. I had hardly spoken since Big Mummy's death. I needed all the distractions I could get. So there I was, putting my mouth to use. Surely, I thought, I can prove more bravery in finishing an entire pizza than I will in lifting a coffin. 5 slices in, I was finding loose bits of onion on the plate, scooping them up with my hands. 3 hours earlier, you'd called, asking if I could read a poem at Big Mummy's funeral. It would be an honor, I told you, and immediately I felt hungry, wanting food that wasn't good to eat. Is this how healing works? Nat, how can I help? 2 hours after eating the pizza, I ordered a chicken pesto panini, adding extras to make it more flavorsome. Roasted peppers, caramelized onions, melted cheese and sweet potato. I peered down at my stomach later that night, in awe of this new roundness that eclipsed my penis. I turned again, rubbing my skin clockwise with little to be proud of. Every day since we arrived home from Amsterdam, I had been haunted by the thoughts of doing more. I had been digesting my guilt. I didn't feel like I liked to fail those close to me. Yomi, I'm telling you, that's a start, I suppose. I was buying my suit for the funeral soon. 3 weeks before, I had tasked myself with getting in shape in time for the ceremony. I had also ignored myself completely. I was conscious of my belt fastened tighter than hugs from mourners. I was conscious my suit jacket wouldn't be big enough to conceal my stomach. I was conscious of the well I was thinking myself deeper into. Am I being supportive enough is what I want to ask. The weekend before the funeral, I met you and your boys at KFC. They explained the process of lifting a coffin and you laughed at the snack box I ordered to eat. Though I knew it was small, I did not tell you about the iyon and efo I ate earlier at my mum's. I was not hungry, but it was the weekend before the funeral, and whether you needed me in whatever way, I would be there. Like when you first arrived, the black boy too shy to eat chicken in front of me and my girl. So I ate with you and your boys that night. I ripped each wing, sucked meat off reedy bones. I carried on feeling it sit in my stomach like strawberry on quicksand until I could sense your banter with your boys landing more comfortably in your body and could see in your eyes that you were okay. You were going to be okay. Thank you. Cool.
I feel, thank you. I you know, I don't even know. I don't even have the words, man. Thank you. I had a like I just said in chat. You know, I've been trying to enter into this poem to figure out how to enter into this poem for a while now, and this helped. So personally, I thank you, and I thank you for the audience that is present and the audience that will be present later, for all the work and for you sharing this new work with us, that is, you know, about to hit the about to hit the presses, right? So
thank you for the time.
Yeah,
I really
no,
appreciate the time.
definitely. So I want to get to a couple of the questions. I'm looking at the time we have. There's a couple of things I want to get through that's specific to BBB, some questions that we asked that's specific to that. So I want to get to that first. But let me go back to some of the questions that folks had. And forgive me if I'm mixing up who asked them, but earlier on, I think it was Nellie Moody asked, what do you think is the relationship between pseudonyms, especially in the world of hip hop and rap, given names and the renaming of the Africans enslaved brought to the colonies? Ooh, that was deep.
That's a deep one. And I don't know if I'm the best person to answer the question, but I can definitely just be like, I feel, you know, I touched on the whole thing of, for me to try to enter this piece of work, of all the work, of everything that I've just shared just now, if I entered it in something other than myself, then I don't think I'll be truthful to myself. I don't think I'll be in any way, shape, or form be truthful to myself. Like, I have to enter this for my own process, for my own ancestral process, in terms of understanding just where this is from. You know, the very first poem that I read was The Door of No Return. I'm like, that's coming from a space that I can only enter as myself, because I have to know how does it play in relation to me and my own, and for the most part, my own privilege in this setting that I'm in right now, because I have family that are not as privileged. They don't have as much that I do, just to a certain degree, you know. And I think that for me, it's just thinking back to that whole thing of humility, in that thing of like, how can I raise this and bring this to attention in the best way I can? And you know, I'm a big hip hop head. I love my rappers and what have you. And you know, I always wonder what how does I would draw a Jay-Z reference, because that's just what's in my head. I'm just like, how's Sean Carter feel in regards to everything with BLM? How does Jay-Z feel about everything with BLM? Do you see what I mean? Like, it's like, what in regards, how would Jay-Z react in watching that footage of George Floyd? How was Sean Carter's approach in watching that thing with George Floyd? At some point, I think you cannot ignore this persona side. You have to enter with your full entire self. And if you're not going in there with your full entire self, there's a question of why and what you're afraid of, right? And there's a question of what are you, the there is a willingness that's being asked of the individual, especially Black people and especially Black artists. And I think the willingness is, are you ready to risk the what you have created and built? And for the most part, what you have created and built, you know, can people just switch that off at a drop of a light, which then you then realize what your worth and value is? Are you willing to risk that in order for what you believe in? And that's a real question that's being asked, you know? And I can't answer that for everyone. I can say with this book, personally, it's my entry point in trying to find that out right now, in trying to speak about these issues and speak about certain individuals in the book and trying to explore that to see, will there be ramifications? Will I be challenged on some of these theories? But at least I can be honest to myself and say I entered it as Yomi Ṣode, not as this kind of alter ego or self, whatever it is. So I'm going to enter it as me, and I will deal with it as me. So I hope that in some way helps or answers that.
That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was phenomenal. Are you willing to risk? God, that's a whole poem within itself. We have so another question. Oh, this is from Monica Romo, just asking what the course was. You talked about a course that you took on right early on.
Super simple. Entry into poetry. You would think, this was in 2012. No, this was 2013, right? And I've been writing poems since 2007. And I'm when I told you that I started right from the basic, like the start, I started right from there, right? And it's and there's something about the ego that also hits here, because I'm in the class and I know the tutor, I know the person facilitating this course. The facilitator I've performed next to many a times. And here I am doing an entry into poetry. And that person's looking at me crazy thinking, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And I'm looking back like, I'm here to learn.
Yeah.
And it's that whole thing of like humility, is that whole thing of don't let your ego be your absolute crash and burn. Do not let your ego ruin you, man. I think is the most important thing. And for me, I wasn't ready for my ego to try to take any steps. I don't know about this. I want to learn about this. Very simple, you know.
Yeah. Wonderful. So Vicky Harvey asked, do you ever feel stuck in your writing, and what to do? What do you do at these times?
Yep, I feel absolutely stuck, and at points where I want to write but can't write, I take a break. I'm succession taking over my life. All good. Right now, the biggest challenge in my life right now is two things. My youngest, potty training, because she's getting the potty. We've had a clean day today. We had no poo in the knickers. We had no pee. We had no changes. We had a clean day. We had a clean day today, which was beautiful. And my eldest is tying his shoelaces. Like, he's learned to tie his shoelaces.
Yeah.
Those two things are fulfilling things for me. They're fulfilling things in terms of, okay, cool. So there's nothing really coming in for writing right now. So my energies and my inspirations are geared in other spaces. And I need to make space for that to happen, because even in watching the trashiest show to the most serious, profound show, or helping laces to be done, or getting the potty training right, there is some form of wisdom and inspiration somewhere in all. There's a story in all of it. So I will be like, just embrace. Don't be the poet. Don't be that poet person. Just take in everything in the world. Don't think too serious into it. My advice. This is just me personally.
Look, it's fantastic. Let's just try to ask the name of the debut book. It's Mannerisms.
Yeah, so it's mannerism. There's no S, but I do appreciate that folks add the S on there. So it's mannerism. So if you just put mannerism and my name next to it in like Google, then you see it. It'll be in there. Oh, and the reason for mannerism, I don't know if it's to explain the mannerism. So mannerism, in terms of the actual spelling mannerism, I just wanted to have a little bit of a twist on that, because the term mannerism as a term is derived from Italy in the 1600s. I don't know if folks knew that, but this is the research and it's where it brought me to. But the manner, in terms of the way you've grown up in, the area you've grown up in, I wanted to make an argument with the book that there is a certain DNA that's inbuilt specifically in people of color, Black people in particular, in relation to this book, that we grow up in. There's a certain set of mannerisms that I feel like we grow up with as a people that's very different from white friends, colleagues, the white world for the most part, right? So Shaka, I don't know if you can agree with me, but I can walk into any job interview in space and I'm already feeling my mannerism in regards to my name,
Yeah.
in terms of how that might happen, right? I might go into a nightclub and I'll spot all of the exits first, but my mannerisms has raised me to be like something might kick off at any given moment. Whereas my white friend or colleague just wants to probably have some fun and get drunk. I'm thinking, I don't want to die. And there was a very real, very, very real feelings that you grow with. And that's why the title is there, to say there is a different set of adapting that happens with people of color specifically in that kind of parallel discussion with like with white friends, colleagues, and blah blah blah. So that's why the title is what it is.
That's fantastic. I mean, so what I was trying to allude to in the very, very beginning when I said, where's your manner, right?
Yeah.
It's that term that they use in the UK of like where you're from, like where
You're from.
where you rest your head at, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So got a couple minutes left. We're going to go through what I call sort of the quick fire rounds, right? You just going to ask you, well, this first part, I'm just going to ask you a couple things. First thing, you can't think about it. It's the first thing that's coming in.
I'm going to fail miserably at this.
This is perfect.
It's just not gonna work. It's just I'll pass what I can. I'll answer what I can. You can't do this to me, man.
No, it's all good. It's gonna be two. There's gonna be two sections of it, and you'll see. The first one, right? So, Dave Chappelle or Kevin Hart?
Dave.
Nas, right?
Oh,
wait, Nas. I'm gonna have to do it. Nas, Jay-Z, Black Thought, Stormzy. One of them have to go.
Wait, Nas. Oh my God. Purely because is the artist that I've actually heard less, that I've listened to less. Black Thought.
Gotcha. We're gonna have to have a conversation after this.
I knew it.
Busta Rhymes or Andre 3000?
Oh man. Oh, why? Why do that? Purely because from the early doors, this was the person I just wanted to just set the layout and the template for me. And it's what, as in who am I keeping or who's going?
No, just either one.
Busta, I'm keeping. I'm keeping Busta. I'm keeping Busta.
Okay. All right, definitely. Who would you like to see in a slam? Could be anyone.
Who would live?
Yeah.
Who would I love to see in a slam live?
It could be the slam could be live. They may be currently not alive. It doesn't matter.
Wow. Right. So okay, I've got two. I'm gonna cheat code it.
Okay.
I'm gonna absolutely cheat code it. In slam mode, in absolute slam mode, I would have loved. I still wonder what witnessing Saul Williams is like live in slam mode, not kind of like in slam mode. I want to see what that's like.
Right.
And I think purely because he's been on my mind for a while, and I did touch on him earlier, but I wonder what the charisma of what Langston Hughes would have brought to a slam stage.
Yeah.
I just wonder what that would be like. Like I just don't know. I don't know what that would look like, but I know that
like,
it would have
like a crystal stare.
it would be, I don't know what that would look like. I have no idea what that would look like.
Exactly. Okay, cool. All right. So the next part of this quick fire, right? Again, this is the part that's first, the first thing that comes to your mind, right?
Oh,
I'm gonna say a word. You have to say I have to say a word. You have to say either a word. You could say two words, but it's the first thing that comes to your mind, right? Okay. Here we go. We first start. Poetry.
Freedom.
Language.
Water.
Jollof.
The best. Nigeria.
I was waiting for it. Okay. Just for you guys who don't know that this is a constant
There's
battle.
diaspora wars, man. There's diaspora wars. This is it.
Where does the best jollof rice come from? All right, next one. Woman.
Creator.
Black woman.
Protect.
Mother.
Love.
Parliament.
Fuck that shit.
Pain.
Breath.
Freedom.
Wow. Oh my God. I don't. Jail.
Religion.
Spirit.
Hip hop.
Trend setting.
Love.
Always.
Soil.
Feet.
Arsenal.
Tool belt.
Nigeria.
Nostalgia.
Saul Williams.
Originator.
Box Park.
Boxed in.
Africa.
Home.
Justice.
Tears.
Wonderful. Last thing I got for you. Where is Yomi in next 5 years? What are you doing in the next 5 years?
If I'm not in San Jose, I don't know what's going on, man. We need to talk
That's what
to
I'm
each other.
saying.
What's going on? Like, we just need
That's
to have
already on the list.
we need to have an entire conversation with each other. Where am I? 5 years. I want in 5 years, I want a garden that my children can go into. That's what I want. In 5 years, I want a garden that my children can go into, and I would know. Snap, getting a bit emotional. I would know that those kind of almost like the script of how Black lives should almost kind of occupy the spaces and what they should the achievements, the cap on that. I just want to bust that cap wide open, right? And know that that stereotype of the council estate of this is the certain kind of high-rise living is something that they will never experience, because I had to go through that type of thing. It doesn't, and I would want that to be that. I would want that legacy to be set in place, you know, all poetry and everything aside, what have you, that goal for them to have a garden that they can go out to in the summer. Nothing would make me more proud, you know.
That is amazing. You know, my wife Lux always talks about earth and grounding, you know, and how earth grounds you, and why she's always so adamant that she wants a garden wherever she is, a garden to earth her. So that makes so much sense and is so relatable. And look, I thank you for not just joining and being part of this conversation with me. I thank you for being the entity that you are on every single level. And I am honored and blessed and thankful for all that have added and touched you to make you the person you are. It's incredible. I've been seeing this journey a little bit, a part of your life, you know, up close and from afar. And I am proud. I'm very, very proud and pleased right? I'm not even gonna go. I'm gonna get all emotional as well. Look, at the end of the day, I'm glad that I'm here. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that we can provide a space for you to share yourself and for folks to be able to consume you. So I'll just leave it at that. Look, you guys, look, Mannerism is going to be out. I think there's pre-sales going on. We'll drop some links on my page. You can find Yomi through my page. You can find him directly. We will make sure that everyone has a way to find their way to this young man. And I thank Poetry Center San Jose for providing a conduit to have these conversations. I provide everyone here for taking the time to share with us, right? Taking the time out of your day to listen to two folks just sit down and chop it up and talk shit.
Before you go, and I have to share with you. I don't know if you remember, there was a point where we went to a show. We were booked for a show, you, me, Alim, and we were ready. We had to travel. We had to travel for like 45 minutes to an hour to this place that we're going. And we get there, and there were like 5 people to perform to. And we were like, oh, we really hit we hit the sweet spot in our performance career, right? we hit the sweetest spot right now. We were prepping all the way for what we're about to do, and we just 5 people, right? And 5 people in like maybe an 80-seater or something like that. And we had 5 folks, and we had the best time. Like, we read to those folks. It was special. And to go from that journey to myself releasing a book, or to having these awards, for you to like a poet laureate, is incredible. I missed you so badly when you left, and I don't think I ever got a chance to even tell you how much of a force you were in my life and to my family. And for every single space that I go into, for every single performance I go into, you are always you're the battery on my back. And I just need you to understand that energy follows through with that. And with that, I will do you proud, because I know where we've come from, but I'm just like, hey, you were in this before. I wouldn't know over you if it wasn't for you. Do you know what I mean? Like, there were folks I would know if it wasn't for you. And I'm just like, it's just with huge gratitude to yourself, to the work you've done in the community. You won't land in London and folks won't know who you are within the community. You are loved, and this is just for me to acknowledge you and the great work you're doing there, and much love to everyone that kind of joined in the space. And I look forward to seeing you one day in the physical,
Absolutely. When this COVID thing gets when it gets in control, dude, we'll definitely join the families and chop it up and eat some food. Enjoy. I'm honored. So yes, so look, I'm gonna pass it back on to Rob just to do the valedictorian ending portion of this. But again, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, sorry, before you go, Lapel David.
Yeah, go ahead.
David,
Oh yes,
I promised. So let me just copy and paste it real quick. Where you add? All right, here we go. Over the edge term. I love that. So let me. No, it's all good, Bill. I got you.
Yeah, I was trying to look it up too. I couldn't spell it.
Lapel David. There we go. So check it out, man. Have a read on that. Let me know what you think.
That's me every time I leave the house.
Oh my God, that is incredible.
Wonderful. All right, I'll pass it on to Rob. Thank you guys for joining, and you have a wonderful evening. Please give hugs to the family for me.
Will do. I will do.
All right, wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Save the chat. 3 dots up in the right upper corner. Thank you, Yomi, for coming today. Thank you, Shakka, for hosting the show. I'm going to leave you two here. You don't need to see my face. And I'm giving it back to Shakka. All right. Go well, everyone. You're all loved. Thank you so much. All right.
Wonderful.
That concludes our show for Beautiful Black Books. Stay tuned to Facebook and our website and further announcements, and we will provide information about our next show. You can catch this one on YouTube. And lots of love. All right, that concludes our show for today. We're going to.
Great.